At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Entering a realm between the hidden and forgotten, a slipstream caught between realities, a secret museum of the esoteric, the private library of shadows, all taking place in a world forged from mystery and caught between logic and myth. You are entering para-reality.
Hello and welcome to the mysterious world of para-reality. A reality where the unknown meets the unexplained and everything is a mystery. I'm Sandman, and I'm your host. Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining me in the Secret Bunker for another episode of Para-Reality. Tonight, we're diving deep into a topic that's as old as time itself. Curses. Are they just superstitions, or do they hold real power over our lives? In this episode, we'll be unraveling the mystery behind curses, their origins, their types, and most importantly, who has the ability to wield them. Throughout history, curses have been feared, invoked, and even sought after. From ancient Egyptian tombs to the latest legends of vengeful witches, curses have played a major role in shaping stories, influencing battles, and even altering destinies. But what exactly makes a curse powerful? What kinds of curses exist and how do they manifest? I'll be sharing some chilling examples of well-known curses from history, mythology, and even the present day because, some believe curses are very much still alive today. But this episode isn't just about fear. It's about knowledge. And in the second half of tonight's show, I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself from a curse if you ever find yourself under its dark influence. And for the brave among you, I'll even be walking you through the process of how to cast a curse, whether it's for personal protection or perhaps a bit of poetic justice. So whether you're a skeptic, a curious soul, or someone who's dabbled in the mystical arts, this episode is for you. Grab your salt, light your candles, and keep your eye on the shadows, because tonight we explore the dark and powerful world of curses and their ability to shape our fate. Are you ready to curse or be cursed? To learn more, you'll have to tune in, and find out. But before we go any further, I'd like to take a little bit of time to welcome some new followers of the podcast. Welcome Gwen Guy 1, Mikey Livid, and fellow podcasters, the Paranormal Classroom. Thank you, everybody, for the follow. I got a couple of thousand followers, so if you're listening to this podcast and you're not a regular follower, please be sure to do so. I think you'll find that this podcast differs from others like it by offering varying, different points of view from the norm. I simply present the evidence to you and let you, the listener, make up your own mind and encourage you to do your own research. And if you don't follow me on the socials, you need to do that too. It's where you can keep up with all the latest goings on with parareality, as well as get a look at my personal life, a little behind the scenes look, if you will. I'll be giving you the deets on how you can do that later on in the podcast. So thank you. Ooh, I choked. Thank you, everybody, for the follow. Thank you, Gwen Guy 1, Mikey Livid, and the Paranormal Classroom. Now, before we dive into tonight's topic, I want to take just a minute to share some really exciting news with everybody. As many of you know, this podcast has been a labor of love for me for years, almost 20 years, 19 years now, and I'm beyond thrilled to announce that Parareality Podcast has won not one, not two, but 3 Podcast Excellence Awards. This is from the inaugural awards of the Podcast Excellence Awards. This is the first time they've done it, and we've been recognized with Best Paranormal Podcast, Best Podcast Host, and Best Podcast Co-host. So I just want to take a moment to thank all of you, the listeners, who've stuck with me throughout this journey. Your support, your feedback, and your enthusiasm keep this podcast going week after week, year after year. I also want to give a huge shout out to my former part-time co-host, John Harrison, winner of the Best Podcast Co-host Award. I want to thank him for all of the laughs, insight, and energy that he brought to the show. A big thank you to the Podcast Excellence Awards for honoring Parareality Podcast with these accolades. It means the world to me. It really does, and I appreciate it so much. And of course, I can't forget my incredible wife, Mrs. Sandman, for putting up with my little side gig for all of these years. Without her love and support, none of this would be possible. I'm truly humbled and honored to have received these awards, and I couldn't have done it without each and every one of you. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. So let's make 2025 an even bigger year for the Parareality Podcast. Now, let's get into tonight's episode and talk about the power of curses. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a curse? Throughout history, cultures around the world have believed in the power of curses, often describing them as supernatural maledictions meant to bring harm, misfortune, or even death to an individual or a group. Unlike simple bad luck, a curse is said to be deliberately placed upon a target, either by a person or a supernatural entity. Curses are a central theme in folklore, religion, and even modern conspiracy theories. Some believe that they are the work of black magic, while others think they could be manifestations of negative energy, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But regardless of their origin, one thing is clear. Curses have left a lasting impression on human history. Throughout ancient civilizations, Curses were often used as warnings. Egyptian tombs, for example, were sometimes inscribed with threats of divine punishment for anyone who dared disturb the resting place of the dead. In medieval times, people feared the evil eye, a form of curse cast through a malevolent glare, believed to bring about bad luck or illness. But curses aren't just relics of the past. Even today, many people believe in their power, and modern-day witches and practitioners of the occult still engage in cursing rituals. Some even sell their services online, offering to cast curses or even remove a curse. Of course, all for a small fee. So before we get into anything else, unfortunately, it's time to take a quick pause for the cause and try to raise some money to keep this podcast going. So I'm going to take a second and let you guys listen to this.
I know every operating system like the back of my hand.
I have 25 years of experience and have worked with several people from your company. I've been recognized for my passion. My team is everything.
LinkedIn delivers candidates who rise above the rest. With an up-to-date view into shared connections, skills, and interests you won't find anywhere else. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
Now, not all curses are created equal. So let's go over some of the most well-known types. We've got the spoken curse, also known as a verbal curse. This is when someone speaks ill-willed words with the intent of causing harm. Think of the old phrase, may you suffer 1,000 plagues, right? Words have power, and many believe that intention alone can bring about misfortune. Next, we have the written curse. These are found in ancient texts, scrolls, and even graffiti. These curses are inscribed with the intent to curse anyone who reads them. And one of the most famous examples is the curse of King Tut's tomb. And next we have the object-bound curse. It's also called a cursed artifact. Now these curses are attached to objects, right? Go figure. Ever heard of the Hope Diamond? This infamous jewel is said to bring misfortune to all who possess it. Other famous cursed objects include the Dybbuk box, said to contain an evil spirit, and the Bassano vase, an artifact rumored to bring death to its owners. Next, we have generational curses. These span across families or entire bloodlines. They're believed to be passed down due to ancestral sins or spiritual debts of some kind. The Borgia family of Renaissance Italy was rumored to be cursed because of their ruthless actions, and some believe that the Kennedy family suffers from a similar generational curse. Now we have the place curse. This is a curse that haunts a specific location, causing misfortune to anyone who resides there. The Bermuda Triangle, for example, has been theorized to be under a form of supernatural influence. Other places include Dudleytown, Connecticut, which is said to be abandoned because of its history of unexplained deaths and tragedies. And finally, that leads us to the psychological curse. Sometimes the belief in a curse is enough to manifest misfortune. This plays into the power of suggestion and self-fulfilling prophecies. If someone believes they're cursed, they may unknowingly sabotage themselves. So, who has the power to cast a curse? While some believe that curses can only be invoked by practitioners of dark arts, many traditions hold that anyone, if they have strong enough intent and emotional energy, can place a curse, even without knowing that they're doing this. Witches, shamans, and sorcerers are often associated with the practice of cursing using rituals, incantations, and even sympathetic magic, like the infamous voodoo doll. Some religious texts speak of divine curses, where even gods or higher beings have cursed humanity as a punishment for something. Now, interestingly, in some cultures, it's believed that emotions like envy, rage, or hatred can unintentionally create a curse. An example of this would be the evil eye. This is given without ritual or conscious effort, but still feared as a powerful force. Now, the evil eye can also be an intentional thing as well, but you get the idea. Now, this raises an interesting question here. Are curses a form of black magic? Well, it's not just a black and white answer. The answer depends on who you ask. Many consider them a dark art, as they are meant to cause harm. But some people argue that curses, like all magic, are just neutral. It's the intent behind them that determines their morality. So now let's talk about some of history's most famous curses. We're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. The first, and probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous, would be the curse of the pharaohs. This is the belief that anyone who disturbs an ancient Egyptian tomb will suffer misfortune, disease, or death. Several deaths have been linked to those involved in the excavation of King Tut's tomb, for example. And I'm not going to get into all of this. I'm just hitting the highlights here. The second, which I've also already mentioned, is the Kennedy curse. Now, this is a tragic stream of untimely deaths and misfortunes that have plagued the Kennedy family for generations. So is it just coincidence, or is there something darker at play here? Now, we had JFK, who was one of the more popular presidents in history and very young for a president. He was in his 40s, right? And during a campaign stop for re-election, early in the campaign, he was in Dallas riding in a convertible car and was assassinated. And that's another long conspiracy theory thing that I just am not getting into here. These files, the Kennedy files, are supposed to be released soon if they haven't been released already. So he was assassinated. His brother, Robert Kennedy, was going to run for president to try to keep the Kennedy legacy alive. He was also assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, who claimed to have no memory of the assassination, which is another big, long, convoluted conspiracy theory thing going on right there. So you've got that, or those two, and then you have JFK Jr., John F. Kennedy Jr., who tragically died in a airplane accident when he was airplane crash when he was I think he was in his 40s as well. He was very young, maybe late 30s, early 40s. I can't remember. He and his beautiful wife, very, very young. And of course, you've got Ted Kennedy, who is he was a senator, ran unsuccessfully for president. I think at least once, maybe twice. Excuse me. He had a car accident where a young woman tragically died, and he just kind of like ditched her there, left her there, in which it didn't ruin his political career, but it kept him from having any aspirations of being president. Let's put it that way. So there's a lot going on to the Kennedy case, and even RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's got some weird stuff going on with him. I mean, if you believe the crap that's touting out of his mouth, is his brain's been half eaten by some worm or something like that. So, you think it sounds like crap, but I mean, maybe the Kennedy family is cursed, and maybe he actually did have a worm eat his brain. I don't know. Probably not, because he's pretty much an idiot. He is bringing horrible, horrible shame to the Kennedy name. Horrible shame. All right. Next, we have the curse of the Hope Diamond, which is, once again, one of those things that I've already mentioned. It's a huge diamond, a legendary diamond. And this thing has allegedly caused death and destruction for almost everyone who has owned it. And I can't remember how many carats this thing is, but it's huge, like one of the biggest diamonds in the whole entire world. And just about everyone who has owned it has had something bad happen to them, whether they've died or lost all of their fortune or something bad has happened to them. And next we have the curse of Macbeth. So actors and theater professionals often avoid saying the name of Shakespeare's play inside of a theater, believing it to be cursed. Now, I admittedly, I was going to look up some stuff about the curse of Macbeth before I started recording this, and I just didn't, because why? I forgot. So I've heard of the curse of Macbeth, and you definitely don't want to say anything about Macbeth when you're in the play Macbeth, because most people that have done this have had something tragic happen to them. And then, of course, finally, I'm going to talk about, or just mention briefly, sports curses. So there are so many sports curses out there. One of the most recent ones would be I don't know what they call it, the sportscaster's curse, or the doink curse, or the kicker curse, or whatever, where, you've got the announcers on TV, you got the play-by-play guy, and you got the color guy, and they're talking, and there's about to be a field goal, and one of them says, well, Steve, he's never missed a field goal in the last 50 attempts, and he's hit his longest field goal is from 60 yards, and this is a 30-yard chip shot for the lead, and the guy kicks the ball and it misses wildly off to the left or right, or doinks off the upright, or gets blocked, or something bad happens. That's one example of a modern day sports curse. You ever heard of the curse of the Bambino? So the Boston Red Sox went 86 years without a World Series win after trading Babe Ruth. Now, whether it's a coincidence or a supernatural retribution, these legends live on, and there are a lot of them. So before we get into this next segment here, I want to take another quick break, because when we get back, I'm going to be talking about how you can cast a curse yourself. And I'm going to say I don't necessarily recommend this, but we'll get into it when we get back. Hang on just a second and take a listen to this. Going to try to pay a couple of more bills. I'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Okay, so sorcerers, witches, and warlocks aren't the only people who can cast spells and put curses on people. With a little training, anyone can do it. All you have to do is forget about the golden rule and resign yourself to the fact that vengeance, and plenty of it, is the only thing that will make you happy. Now, if you're looking to cast a curse upon an enemy, you can follow these 4 simple steps, this 4-step simple plan for unleashing the evil powers. This will give you the upper hand in your battle with any enemy, no matter how strong he or she may be. when I first started this podcast 19 years ago, one of the things that I did was a 3-part series, which actually gave me the idea of my summer series that I do every year, where I do a 3-part series. Anyway, my first ever 3-part series was on Wicca and witchcraft and spell casting and stuff like that. And it was very eye-opening for me because I didn't really know anything about that. And for a little while, after I did all the research and did those 3 episodes, for a little while, I kind of dabbled in and out of Wicca and rituals and spell casting and stuff like that. I was never an avid practitioner. Never an expert. I did not consider myself to be a witch or a warlock or anything like that. I just dabbled, if you will, into that whole scene for just a minute, not very long. So I do have some knowledge of this. And I will tell you, I'm going to give you your due warning right here, right now, before we go any further. Dabbling in the occult can be dangerous or even deadly, especially if you don't know what the hell you're doing. So I'm going to give you a very, very simple 4-step guide for casting a curse on someone. Proceed at your own risk if you want to follow this curse, if you want to practice this curse, if you want to take this curse that I'm about to give you and use it on someone. Proceed at your own risk. Neither I nor the Para-Reality podcast endorses placing a curse on someone, nor do I or the Para-Reality podcast take responsibility for any negative results that you may have. You have been warned. So once again, dabbling in the occult can be dangerous or even deadly. So if you wish to take this simple 4-step plan and cast a curse on someone who is your enemy or a perceived enemy, you are proceeding at your own risk. Neither I nor the Para-Reality podcast takes responsibility for any results. That is your last warning. Now, just listening to this is not going to give you any bad juju. All right? It's in the actual practice itself where bad juju can come about. So, with that being said, before I proceed, this is not the only form of a curse. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of curses out there. You can probably do a quick Google search and find a plethora of them. There are books about witches and Wicca and occult practices that are aplenty that you can find all over the place. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I have several books about Wicca and witchcraft in my library here. But what I'm about to give you is just a simple 4-step plan for casting a curse. Okay? It's very easy. Anyone can do it. Just proceed with caution. Proceed with your own risk. All right. So step number 1. And if you want to get a pen and paper, write this down. feel free or just replay this on a loop or whatever. All right, step number 1. Rise from your bed at midnight. Sit cross-legged on the floor in a dark, empty room and whisper these words. Evil live, live evil. Whisper those words, evil live, live evil, over and over for exactly 1 minute, 60 seconds, no more, no less. In your mind's eye, picture the person you want to curse while you are saying, evil live, live evil, over and over again for 60 seconds. Step number 2. As the person's image appears to you, visualize great harm coming to him or her. For example, you might watch with great delight as a car runs over this person, or maybe the person falls down a flight of stairs. Just visualize some kind of harm coming to your enemy. Step number 3. Savor the victim's agony, but don't forget the misfortune. You visualize in your mind's eye the misfortune your victim will suffer in his or her real life. For example, if you visualize the victim losing an eye, the victim should lose an eye. If you visualize something really horrible like death, the victim should die. So carefully consider the consequences of your actions before you proceed. So, to recap, get out of your bed at midnight and sit cross-legged on the floor in a dark, empty room, and for 60 seconds, whisper the words, evil live, live evil. Evil live, live evil. While you are doing this, in your mind's eye, picture the person that you want to curse and visualize great harm coming to that person in some shape, form, or fashion, and savor the victim's agony. But don't forget the misfortune. Those are the first 3 steps. And finally, step 4, as you continue to revel in the imagery of the evil that you have brought to your enemy, whisper, powers of darkness, make this so. While you're doing this, contemplate your actions for a minute or so, and then your work is done. That's it. So it's a very, very simple, quick 2-minute ritual. Get out of bed at midnight, sit cross-legged in a dark, empty room, whispering, evil live, live evil, for 60 seconds. And while you're doing this, picture your enemy. Picture the person having great harm caused to them. They get hit by a car. They get stabbed by a robber, a mugger. They die, whatever you want. And as that person's image to you appears to you and you are visualizing some great harm come to them, revel in that victim's agony. Embrace it. And do all of this for 60 seconds. At the end of that 60 seconds, as you are continuing to find joy and revel in the imagery of the evil that you have unleashed upon your victim, whisper, powers of darkness, make this so. Contemplate your actions for at least 1 minute, maybe 2, and then your work is done. And if you are sincere in your desire to punish an enemy and have absolutely no reservations about bringing him or her harm, the curse will work. So in order for this to succeed, not only do you have to do the curse correctly, but you need to be sincere in your evil intentions to punish your enemy while you are doing this curse. You need to really mean it, own it. You need to be sincere and don't have any remorse about bringing this person harm, or it won't work. So you can see how this can be a really bad, dark, evil thing. And I do not, just because I'm telling you how to do it, I do not recommend that you do it. Refer to my warning. Dabbling in the occult can be dangerous or even deadly, especially if you do not know what you are doing. So proceed at your own risk. And I, or the Para-Reality Podcast, do not take any responsibility for any results that you may have. And with that being said, time to pay a little bit more bills, and I'll be back and I'll tell you how you can break a curse if you've had one cast upon you.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
So, if curses are real, can they be broken? Well, many believe so. So here are some of the most common methods to break a curse. And after I tell you these, I'm going to get a little bit more specific with a ritual. So here we go. We're going to talk about a few. So cleansing rituals. So things like burning sage, using holy water, or performing smudging ceremonies can help remove negative energy. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. In some cultures, egg cleansings, where an egg is rolled over the body to absorb the curse, are commonly placed. Now, this is true a lot in Mexican folklore. The bruja does a lot of egg work. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. I know someone that's had it done on them, has seen it done, and it's supposedly works, and it's freaky. Next are salt and protection symbols. Now, salt is widely believed to absorb and repel negativity. Sprinkling salt around your home or carrying a small pouch of salt can help you. Protective charms like the Hasma, the Pentacle, or St. Benedict's medal are also used to ward off curses. There's also this thing called the Sigil of Protection, which I happen to own one. I'll get into that in a minute. There are reversal spells that can be done. Many magical traditions include specific rituals designed to send the curse back to its source. One example is the mirror spell, where a mirror is placed facing outward to reflect negative energy back to its sender. You can also seek a spiritual healer. Shamans, priests, and witches specializing in curse removal can perform rituals to lift a curse. There are Catholic exorcisms, hoodoo root work, which is different than voodoo, and indigenous shamanistic rituals. These are all examples of spiritual interventions used to break curses. Another thing you can do is just simply try to change your mindset. Now, there is a huge belief that curses are just nothing more than psychological, and that by refusing to believe in them, you break their power over you. So you can do things like practice meditation, do affirmations, and positive visualizations. They can all help neutralize the negative effects of a perceived curse. And I'm kind of big into that. I think that whether a curse is real or not, that a big majority of it is psychological. And if you just deny the curse, you can go a long way in breaking it. There's also, we come to the last one, fire and water purification. Many cultures use fire and water as tools for cleansing. Bathing in running water, especially natural bodies like rivers, streams, or even the ocean, is believed to wash away negative energy. Fire rituals like burning a piece of paper with the curse written on it symbolize destruction of the negative energy. Now, I told you I was going to talk a little bit about a sigil of protection. So several years ago, I really got into the Slender Man mythos. I can't even remember how I got turned on to it. I couldn't tell you, but I started watching the Marble Hornet series on YouTube and was just fascinated. That led me to another series called Everyman Hybrid, which led me to another Slenderman series called Tribe 12, and there's one or two others that I watched, but Marble Hornets, Everyman Hybrid, and Tribe 12 were the top three, and they were really, really good, and these things went on for years, man. These guys were really cranking out long, complicated, convoluted stories. Anyway, I started watching stuff about Slender Man, and then I started researching Slender Man, and of course, I didn't think that it was a real thing until I started doing a lot of research. And I even did an episode on Slender Man, and I started just really diving deep into the Slender Man mythos and getting like way down in there about Slender Man, who he was, what he was, where did he come from. And I really believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Slender Man was something that is a real thing, but it's something that we created here in modern society. Is a tulpa. A tulpa is a manifestation of a belief. So if you believe in something hard enough, it will come true. And we had so many people out there who actually believed that Slender Man was real, that it helped to manifest a real form of a Slender Man. You had people like me who didn't actually think that Slender Man was real, but was diving deep into the mythos. And like I said, I was doing a lot of research for a podcast episode. And so people like me helped to create Slender Man as well. So you have this tulpa that was created. And as I did all this research and I did my podcast, and I was still, even after I did the podcast episode, I still was like ingrained into this Slender Man mythos. And I started noticing weird stuff happening around me. I would get the feeling of being watched when no one was around. I would see movements of shadow figures out of the corner of my eyes. I would hear voices sometimes, and I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I could hear it. Sounds like someone whispering, and I would be by myself. And this went on for months, and I thought it was, well, it's just, I'm making all this shit up because I've been looking at Slender Man stuff. I'm freaking myself out. And so I stopped looking at all the Slender Man stuff, and all this crap continued to happen. And like I said, it was months. So I finally called up a good friend of mine, and was like, look, man, I need your help. And I explained to him what was going on. And he's like, I can help you. Don't worry. So he comes over, and he comes over to the house, and he does a cleansing ritual and cleanses the whole entire house, cleanses me, and he gives me this sigil of protection and says, I want you to sleep with this by your bed, and everything will be fine. And this was many years ago, and I've kept that sigil of protection by my bed. It's in my nightstand in the drawer, right at the head of my bed, right beside me, and I sleep with it there every night. And whatever it was that he did, it worked. It cleared away all of the negative stuff. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know. Okay, I don't know if what I was experiencing was just psychological because I had just done such a deep dive and gotten so ingrained into the Slender Man mythos, or if I really helped create this tulpa thing and it was either trying to manifest or did manifest and was coming after me or trying to drive me crazy. I really don't know, but I tend to lean towards I created some form of Slender Man tulpa that was just trying to drive me crazy. So that is my personal story about cleansing and breaking a curse. Since I gave you a basic ritual on how to curse somebody, I figured that it's only fair that I also give you some steps on how to break a curse, just in case you might have one on you. Now, there are 4 to 5 steps here, depending on what happens, and you want to definitely take these in order as best as you can. Okay, there's a step that you might be able to skip, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But first, let's start off with the most important step, which is an evaluation. So the first step in curse breaking should be to fully evaluate your situation. You need to ask yourself the following questions. Do I know for certain that I've been cursed? If I don't know for certain, what makes me suspect that I've been cursed? If you answer yes to question number 1, or if you suspect that you have been cursed convincingly, then you need to ask yourself, do you know who cursed you? The more information that you can gather about who it was that cursed you, how they did it, and why, the better off you'll be. You also need to ask yourself, what kinds of effects is the curse having? Is it affecting only you, or are there others also experiencing the effects? Now, these questions can help you determine the best plan when trying to break this curse. The more you know about the curse itself, the more you can tailor your solution to it. It's also important at some point to make sure that you've really been cursed, right? It could just be some bad luck or maybe some poor decision-making on your part. You have to find out, is there someone who would actually want to curse you, right? Now, the next steps won't necessarily help if your problem isn't caused by a curse. So you always need to make sure that you're fixing the real cause, which is why step 1, evaluation, is the most important step in this whole thing. Okay, so after you have evaluated and you have determined that, yes, I have a curse on me, then you're going to move to step 2, which is spell reflecting. So when you're trying to break any curse, always try spell reflecting first. Reflecting spells is a method of sending the magic back to the caster, leaving your life curse-free. Now, this can be a very effective method, but it doesn't work on every curse. So if you're dealing with an experienced spellcaster, that person may have included some safeguards in their curse. These safeguards prevent the magic from rebounding back to them. And it's smart to evaluate all of this in the days after your spell reflection has gone on. And you should check to see if it worked or if you need to move on. Now, as I've said, I have just dabbled in this. I don't know any spell reflecting rituals to try. So I suggest that you consult someone who is more knowledgeable in this than I am when it comes to spell reflecting, someone who is a Wiccan, a practitioner, or not just dabbles in the occult, but practices the occult or practices Wicca. I suggest that you check with that person on spell reflecting. You can probably look up some stuff on Google. I'm sure it's out there. You can also try that yourself if you wish. That's up to you. So step 3, try a simple curse-breaking spell. Now, there are many ways to break curses, and some of them are just fairly quick rituals, and you can try one or two of the methods that I just talked about a few minutes ago to see if the curse will lift easily. Now, if it does, this is when you can skip a step, okay? So if the curse is gone and you're satisfied it's gone, you can skip this next step that I'm going to talk about, and you can move on to the fifth and final step. However, if some of these simple rituals, these simple methods to break the curse does not work, then you're going to have to up your ante, and you're going to have to move on to step 4, which is just use brute force. So you've got a curse, and if it won't be reflected and it's resisting simpler curse breaking, it's time to just break it with force. Now, the spell that I'm about to describe is simply an example of just one spell that can be used. There are many spells out there, and you can and you should pick and tailor a spell to most closely fit what you know about the curse, if you know anything at all. So get your pen and paper out, because you're going to need to copy this down. There are some items that you're going to need. The first item is air drying clay, and you can get that at any hobby shop. Second item, water charged with the sun's energies, preferably at noon. So take a bowl of water, good old filtered water, not tap water, filtered water. Stick it out in the sunlight from noon to 1 o'clock. Let it get charged up for an hour. Next is you need a slip of paper and a pen, preferably red ink. You can use any color that you want, but red ink is considered the most powerful and is preferable here. You need a single bay leaf. You need a black candle, some sort of fire-safe container, such as a bowl or something like that, and a tool for writing in clay. I suggest a needle or a safety pin, something of that nature, or a small stick. And finally, last but not least, you just need a simple good old-fashioned hammer or mallet of some sort. Okay, now that you've gathered all of your materials, the spell itself must be performed at night and will be most effective if performed during the new or waning moon. So you need to make sure that you cleanse yourself and your workspace thoroughly and anoint yourself with some of the solar water. Now, there are plenty of cleansing rituals out there. You just need to make sure that you cleanse your space. You can use some Palo Santo wood, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, to cleanse yourself and your area with. Anoint yourself with the solar water. Light the candle. Take your slip of paper and your red ink pen and write down all of the effects that the curse has had on you onto that piece of paper. You need to be thorough and you need to be specific. And when you have everything written down, take that single bay leaf and fold that into the paper, and then set the paper on fire with the candle and let it burn down to ashes in that fire-safe container. Now, after it's done burning and the ashes have finished smoldering and they're all cool, you set them aside to do this, okay? Now you need to take a bit of clay, that air-drying clay. It needs to be small enough to make an easy-to-carry talisman, but not so small that you can't inscribe on it. I suggest making it about the size of the palm of your hand, or maybe just a little bit smaller, something that's going to be able to fit into your pocket, okay? So you get this ball of clay, this bit of clay, and anoint it with a single drop of that solar water. Mix the ashes into the clay, nice and thorough, and then roll the clay into a ball and flatten it into a disc. Like I said, you need to make sure that that is about the size of the palm of your hand or maybe a little bit smaller. But be sure not to make it too thin. You don't want it to be too thick like a pupusa, and you don't want it to be too thin where you can read through it, okay? It needs to be able to be inscribed on each side, okay? So on the first side, here's what you need to inscribe. Get ready. Write this down, and I'll say it a couple of times. No more befouled, again unbound, again unbidden. So once again, on one side, while the clay is still moist, okay, needs to be moist, take your pen or your safety pin, your small stick or something, and inscribe these words onto that moist clay. No more befouled, again unbound, again unbidden. Then on the other side, inscribe a symbol to represent the curse. What that symbol is, it can be anything. It can be a sigil, but it can also just be a simple doodle. It can be a stick figure. It can be a little squiggly line. It can be whatever you want that symbol to be, as long as it represents the curse to you. So it can be whatever. All right. Now, blow out the candle. Your ritual is done. Close out your ritual space and let the talisman dry as directed on the instructions. And after the talisman is completely dry, you take it outside early one morning and you just let it sit in the sun until noon. After that, the talisman is now considered finished. So you take it and you carry it with you everywhere. This will absorb the energy from the curse, stopping it from affecting you. And you do this every day, everywhere you go, either in your pocket, in your purse, somewhere that it is going with you, in your backpack. Take it with you everywhere you go, every day, until the next new moon. On the next new moon, you take that talisman and you smash the shit out of it with that hammer or that mallet. What this does is it renders the curse that it has absorbed, it renders that curse useless and broken. And then you take the shards of this talisman outside of your home and you dispose of it. Now, what I suggest is to take it somewhere not on your property. Take it down the road to a park in the woods, a neighbor's house, somewhere, but get it off of your property, dig a small hole, throw those shards in there, and then cover it back up. If you're not going to do that, the next best thing is to throw it in your fire pit, if you've got a fire pit, and just burn it up. Those are the best two ways that I recommend to dispose of this. Okay? Now, remember, this step that I just described could be skipped if one of those simple curse-breaking spells that I talked about earlier takes care of it. If that doesn't, you're going to go with number 4, the brute force. So if you use that simple curse-breaking spell, you can skip over to here, number 5. Or if you have to use brute force, here we go, step number 5. This is after you've broken the curse. So once the curse is broken, your work's not quite over with yet. Once this curse is broken, you'll need to do a little bit of magical housekeeping, because you got to remove any lingering energy or effects from this curse. Now, there's a couple of things to do. The first step is to cleanse yourself, your home, and others affected by the curse. And the second thing is to set up wards and protective enchantments around yourself, because they'll block future curses from you and your home. And you need to do these measures often. You need to update these things often. It's not just a one and done thing. You need to do it pretty regularly, as long as you feel like you're in a situation that may incite another curse. Like maybe the person that put the curse on you sees that it's not having an effect, so you think they're going to continue to try to do the curse again. Or maybe you continue to piss that person off or something. I don't know. But do it until you feel like you don't need to do it anymore. You need to do it on the reg. Okay? Now, if you don't know any magical cleansing spells, and you don't know anyone that practices Wicca or the occult or anything like that that can help you, you can use a smoke cleansing ritual that I'm going to describe right here to cleanse yourself and your home. Okay? And by smoke cleansing, I'm not talking about smudging. All right? So let me explain this to you here. Okay? What I want you to do is use Palo Santo wood to cleanse yourself and your home. This is called smoke cleansing, and it's not the same as smudging, which is a practice that uses sage. And I know that sage gets a lot of press here, but yes, there is a difference between smudging and smoke cleansing. You see, smudging is a closed practice, meaning that not everyone can just go around and say, I'm smudging, or participate in a smudging ritual, because that's actually part of Native American religion. Smudging is a ritual that's sacred to specific cultural practices, and it has its own spiritual significance. Smoke cleansing, on the other hand, is completely different. This is universal, and we can definitely smoke cleanse to clear energy in that way. If burning herbs and using their spiritual properties as a way to reset your energy is something you partake in as a non-indigenous person, that's called smoke cleansing, and is what most people do with Palo Santo wood. And I love Palo Santo wood. I use it. Me and Mrs. Sandman use it around here a lot. So here's how to perform a Palo Santo smoke cleanse. The first thing you need to do is set your intention. To incorporate Palo Santo into your rituals, first, you'll need to ask yourself why you're smoke cleansing. There are no limits. Whatever your reason, that's your reason. If you have a prayer or something you want to say, you can always look up ideas online, but the best intentions are whatever comes straight from your intuition. The second thing you need to do is to gather your utensils. You'll need your Palo Santo and obviously a lighter, as well as some sort of fireproof or heat-proof vessel. It's customary to use an abalone shell or another kind of shell to signify the water element, but you can use any kind of heat-safe bowl that you've got around. The next thing you need to do is put your salt or sand into your vessel to help disperse the ashes and heat of the Palo Santo or whatever you're placing on it. Step number 3 is to light your Palo Santo. Palo Santo is kind of difficult to light, so you may have to hold the flame to it for as long as like 30 to 45 seconds until it starts smoldering and you see a reddish orange ember so that it stays lit. Once you start to see that flow of smoke, you would blow out the flame and next place the Palo Santo on your sand or your salt in your abalone shell or whatever container it is, and then you would either cleanse yourself or the space that you're in. So remember, you got to hold that lighter up there. It's not just and you light it and it lights up like an incense candle or like a wick on a candle. You got to hold it for 30, 45 seconds at least, sometimes longer. Once you see that flow of smoke and there's still a little bit of flame, you would blow out the flame and there's still that smoldering smoke, that flow of smoke that's going up. Now, step 4 is to waft the smoke. Regardless of what you're cleansing, you'll want to have your windows or your doors open so that the old energy has somewhere to go. Then, if you're cleansing your space, what you want to do is walk in a clockwise direction, if you can. letting the smoke waft around. And as you're walking around your home, you're repeating your intention, or you're saying your prayer that you have for your space. Letting the smoke hit every nook and cranny of the house, open up all cupboards and closets and cabinets and everything. This is because energy sometimes has a tricky way of hiding itself. So we want to make sure that we're really taking that energetic broom, if you will, and sweeping out all of the energetic dust and debris that's piled up over time, if that makes sense. Now, if you're just cleansing yourself, like at the start of the ritual that I was describing earlier, you can either just let the smoke cleanse your aura, or you can cleanse different parts of your body for a specific purpose. Maybe you want to cleanse your eyes so you can see what's beautiful, or your mouth so you can speak the truth, or your feet so you can walk in the way that is best aligned with your highest self, stuff like that. I prefer just doing a whole body cleanse and not just stick to specific parts. Then after you've done all your cleansing, whether you're cleansing yourself, you cleanse yourself, you're done, or you're cleansing your area and you've walked in that clockwise motion all around, letting all that smoke permeate everywhere, every nook and cranny, cabinet corner in your house, you're going to do the final part 5, which is put out the smoke. Usually the Palo Santo will go out on its own, and sometimes it goes out quicker than what you want to do, like in the middle of your ritual and you have to light it again. But you can also, to put it out, you can dip it into the salt or sand to extinguish it. And then you're going to offer gratitude. And that's it. I think that having a ritual like that is something that can bring you clarity, and it allows you to connect with yourself. And especially if you do it on a daily basis, and it just allows you to draw in your manifestations because you're in alignment. And once you're aware of how to use Palo Santo responsibly and respectfully, it can be an incredibly beneficial addition to your spiritual rituals, whether you've had just like a bad day and you need to wash the negativity off, or you're carving out a sacred space, or whether you just want to cleanse your house every so often, just because there's a random smoke cleansing with Palo Santo, and it's been around for ages, since ancient times, and it's really, really easy to do. So just to like go back over these 5 steps, just set your intention, get your utensils, your Palo Santo, a lighter, hopefully an abalone shell or some sort of vessel to signify that water element, and a little bit of salt or sand in that vessel. Light your Palo Santo. Remember, you're going to have to hold that lighter there for 30 to 45 seconds. Once it flames up, blow it out, let that smoke flow. Then you're going to waft the smoke of what you're cleansing. Clockwise circle. If you're cleansing your house, open every cabinet, drawer, door in your house. Remember, especially the windows and the door to the outside, to give that negative energy someplace to go. And then put your smoke out. Once your cleansing ritual is done, put your smoke out and give thanks. And there you go. That's how you can cleanse yourself and break that curse. So in conclusion here, our curse is real. Are they a product of the supernatural, or do they exist simply because, well, we believe in them? Whatever the case, history's full of examples that make even the most skeptical among us wonder. If you've ever experienced strange misfortune or feel like something unseen is working against you, maybe, just maybe, you've encountered a curse yourself. But don't worry, dear listeners. Knowledge is power, and now you have the tools to fight back. So that's all for tonight's episode of Parareality. If you had an experience with a curse, I'd love to hear your story. Send me an email or follow me on social media. And as always, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep looking beyond the veil. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. If you'd like to leave a comment about tonight's episode of Parareality, have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, or a story you'd like to tell, send me an email, sandman@parareality.com, or call the Secret Bunker at 615-692-1170 and leave me a message. Don't forget that by leaving me your message, you're giving me permission to play your comment back on the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow Parareality on social media. You can find the podcast on Facebook by looking for sandman.parareality, or you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram under the username @ParaRealRadio. You can also find Parareality on YouTube under the username Parareality1. That's Parareality with the number 1 out behind it. Parareality.com is the home of the podcast on the web, and it's also where you can find paranormal news from all around the world in the Paranews section. And you can listen to past episodes in the archive section, all for the price of absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can buy yourself some swag in the official Parareality shop while you're there. You can also support the podcast for free by leaving me a 3-star or better review on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Your reviews help the podcast to grow and reach even more people, and I would appreciate it very much. I'd love to hear from you guys, so send me those emails. Thank you. So before I close it out, I want to talk to you about a couple of extra things here. I do have, and I just started this last month, I do have a Patreon thing going on right now. So I tried this before. It didn't really work out. I thought, let me try it one more time and see, because I feel like I know a little bit more about Patreon right now and how to successfully do it. So I don't know. We'll see. So I do have a Patreon site, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get this episode right here of Parareality commercial free. So you don't have to listen to those stupid, pesky commercials. You get it commercial free. You can get a secret episode quarterly of Parareality. And for just a little bit more, you're going to get a lot more of Parareality. You can get commercial free. You can get a super secret quarterly episode free. You can also get my secret podcast that I've got going on called Midnight Syndicate. And we've already done a couple of episodes, dropped a couple of episodes of Midnight Syndicate, and there's going to be one more coming up here at the end of the month. This is a secret extra monthly podcast that I do. It's a roundtable discussion style. I got myself and 3 other guests, or 3 other hosts, should I say, that make up the Midnight Syndicate, and we all talk about the latest goings-on in the world of conspiracy theories, the latest conspiracies that are out there, and we all take turns bringing up a topic, leading the discussion, and it's roundtable style. I think it's a very cool podcast that we're doing here, and you can get it by joining the Patreon site. So if you want to join my Patreon, just go to Patreon and look up Parareality, or you can go to parareality.com and you can click on the Patreon link on the homepage there towards the bottom. So yeah, I would really appreciate it if you would consider joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Like I said, you can get this episode right here completely commercial free, and for just a little bit more, you get commercial free podcast. You get the Midnight Syndicate podcast, and there's also a companion podcast that I do that goes along with this. Right now, I'm thinking about changing the name. I can't think of what I want to call it, but right now we're calling it a deeper dive. And I have 2 guest hosts who do about a 20-minute podcast where they will take, and it's just once a month, and they'll take a topic that I have discussed and they'll do a little bit deeper dive. So if you want to go a little bit deeper dive about curses, they're going to be doing that, and that'll be posted up on the Patreon soon. So you get a whole lot of Parareality companion podcast, plus commercial free, all for as little as $1 a month. So please consider joining my Patreon. I would certainly appreciate it so much. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode of Parareality. The next episode is going to drop on Friday, March 21st. At 8 o'clock p.m. Central U.S. time, so make sure you tune in, and find out. I hope that this podcast opens up your mind to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. I hope you've had a wonderful evening. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Good night, everybody.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.
Hey, it's not over. Thanks for sticking around. I got something to tell you. Do you want to be a member of the Secret Sanctum? Well, if you do, there's only one way to do that. Somewhere on parareality.com is a link hidden in my website. And if you can find that link and click on it, you'll be granted access to the secret bunker, and you'll become a member of the Secret Sanctum. It's 100% free. It's not going to cost you anything. And once you become a member, you'll have access to some secret audio files and secret documents, some of which are exclusive only to Parareality and the members of the Secret Sanctum. You'll also get a free Parareality Secret Sanctum t-shirt. Just fill out the form and let me know what size you are, where you're located in your name, and I'll get that right out to you. So if you want to be a member of the Parareality Secret Sanctum and have access to the secret bunker, find the link.